Achilles says, "Hark, Queen Aurora, 10 soldiers wisely led will beat 100 without a head." Achilles says, "Hark, Luke 92 Arentire, you will never do anything in this world without courage. It is the greatest quality of the mind, next to honor."
Asteria says, Herida, salutes.
Χαιρετισμούς.
Luke shouts, "All attention to the Queen of Sparta."
Socrates salutes.
Queen says, Kyle phoro epsilon tau epsilon everyone.
Achilles says, "Χαίρετε, Queen."
Pairat says, Χαίρετε Queen. Priestis says, Χαίρετε Queen.
Queen salutes.
Luke says, "Χαίρε salutes."
Asteria says, Herida Queen in general, the city wasn't the same deprived of your presence.
Luke says, "Thank you, Ambassador. It's a pleasure to be back."
Queen says, looks at her sister and smiles. Asteria smiles. Queen says, let's not waste the time, dear Spartans, and start our weekly Apella. Asteria nods. Apella says, Luke 92 Arentire is at the gate. Queen says, I extend a heartfelt welcome to the command and citizens of Sparta. Please take your seats. She conveys with her customary greeting. Asteria waits Queen's permission and then walks toward her throne, with a fleeting glance at the Spartans present. Queen says. Once everyone has settled, she proceeds. Spartans, children of Leonidas, my brothers and sisters, today I stand once more within these sacred walls of the Apella. Many weeks I was absent from our beloved city, and through the long summer days Sparta moved forward without her queen. But I did not wander in idleness. I carried Sparta name beyond our borders, forging bonds, weighing threats, and listening to whispers of Greece and beyond. So even in absence, my heart and my will never left you. Now the season turns. Summer's fires cool, and autumn brings us together once more in this council. We gather as our forefathers did, to speak with clarity, to decide with discipline, and to shape the fate of Sparta with our voices and our spears. Apella says, "You won't touch these gates, Alelangel Sal resident, for the God's grace hasn't been bestowed upon you." Luke 92 Erentire is at the gate. Queen says, "Also this is the first Apella after the summer's break, and let it be remembered as a gathering marked by a victory." For while I was away, Sparta struck.
Alelangel Sol approached to the main center of the Apella and bow respectfully to your queen salute. To all presents and my queen, I ask for permission to take a seat. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen says, "Our navy sailed forth like an iron storm," she says and nods at Councillor approaching the hall gesturing for her to sit. Asteria nods and addresses a courteous smile to the Councillor.
Alelangel Sol goes silently to her seat while hears the melodic voice of our queen.
Queen says, "Athens, swollen with pride, thought itself beyond reach." Asteria beams with pride at the news brought by the Queen. Queen says, "But now the proud Acropolis is no more than blackened stone. Its temples, once the boast of Ionia, lie in ruins, consumed by fire kindled by Spartan hands." To mark this victory, a painting wrought by a skilled hand has been set upon these gates of the Apella to let it remind us, each time we enter, of what our unity and discipline achieve, and let it stand as a warning to those who would dare test our strength. In time, General Luke will deliver his full report of the assault, that you may hear the tale of our warriors upon the sea and the vengeance they have carved into stone. But today, my Spartans, let us take this Apella as a sign of renewal. My return, the city gathered once more. Our enemies humbled, our banners high. Sparta rises into the new season unshaken and supreme.
Hail Sparta! Hail Sparta!
Hurroo! Hurroo! Asteria says, "Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever." Haro!
Luke says hurroo. Hurroo.
Asteria says, "Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever." Haro. Queen says, "I declare today's Apella open."
Alelangel Soul says, Aro. Aro.
Socrates says, Haru. Haru.
Queen says, I now call upon any skilled harp player to begin the Apella with music, smiley face. Priestess shouts, Hestia, you who tend the holy house of the Lord Apollo, the far shooter at goodly Pytho, with soft oil dripping ever from your locks, come now into this house, come, having one mind with Zeus the all-wise, draw near, and withal bestow grace upon my song. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. Hail Almighty Zeus the Thunderer, hail all the gods of Olympus.
Alelangel Soul raise her hand. If you let me, my queen, I can play the harp for all presents.
Priestess shouts, we offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all in attendance of these prayers. Queen says, please do, Councillor. Pirate says, hello.
Socrates says, wrong harp.
Queen says, giggles. Asteria smiles.
Alelangel Soul stands up of her seat and walks to her eternal friend the harp, and starts to play a melodic music to enjoy all presents.
Asteria looks at the counselor with a mixture of surprise and curiosity, probably because she is not usually the one who opens the sessions of the assembly by showing off her musical talents. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?"
Alelangel soul enjoys to pass delicately her fingers for the strings of the zither, hoping to all presents can enjoy.
Queen says, "You are really skilled, my dear," she comments, listening to pleasurable music that fills the Apella hall. Priestess says, "Are you partying?" Queen says, "Asterisk evolves asterisk." Asteria has to admit that her fingers dance across the strings with unexpected skill. Asteria claps her hands.
Socrates says, so skillful that the strings vibrate with no sound whatsoever.
Queen says, as the performance concludes, she gives Alelangel a grateful nod. "Your music was truly enchanting, captivating us all. Thank you for sharing your talent with us. Please, you may now take your seat."
Alelangel soul approaches in front of the queen and bows respectfully. "Hope you enjoyed my music," and go back to her seat. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen says, "I did, Councillor." Queen salutes. Asteria claps her hands as the councillor walks back to her seat. Queen says, "Now we must ensure that the records of today's Apella are kept. Who among you will take on the responsibility of documenting our proceedings?" Asteria raises hand. "Let my hand to be the one that will keep memory of our deliberations, O Queen." Queen says, nods in approval. "Very well, thank you, Asteria." "I now summon Hieros, Socrates, and Lammy to lead the Apella opening prayers," she proclaims. Asteria nods and picks a scroll that she placed earlier near her throne.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Hygeia. Queen of all, charming and lovely and blooming, blessed Hygeia, mother of all, bringer of prosperity, hear me. Through you vanish the diseases that afflict men, and through you every house blossoms to fullness of joy, and the arts thrive. The world desires you, O Queen, and only soul-destroying Hades ever loathes you.
Priestess says, an assembly took place. Religious worship or ritual activity occurred. People were making references to relaxation. Pirate says, an assembly took place. Religious worship or ritual activity occurred. People were making references to relaxation.
Socrates says, ever youthful, ever beloved, you are a haven for mortals. Apart from you all is without avail for men, wealth, sweet to those feast, and giver of abundance, fails, and man never reaches the many pains of old age, for you are sole mistress and queen of all. But, goddess, come, ever helpful to the initiates, and keep away the accursed distress of harsh disease. Okay, priestess, now would have been the time for you to open Apella, but since you've interrupted proceedings twice already, I think we are now done.
Queen says, smiles. She missed Apella's. Thank you for the prayers, Hieros.
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods.
Priestess says, are you worshipping?
Χαιρετισμούς.
Socrates salutes.
Queen salutes.
Luke says, Chere salutes.
Socrates says, Apella can now be considered to be in session.
Queen says, I now call upon our general to deliver the naval reports.
Luke says, Chere salutes.
Queen salutes.
Luke says, by the will of the queen and in service of Sparta, I deliver to this assembly the account of our strike against Athens. The navy sailed under full strength at the turn of the last moon. Our triremes cut through the waters swift and silent, guided by discipline and the favor of the gods. We landed upon Athenian shores under cover of night, striking first at their harbor defenses. Their watch was careless, their pride their undoing. The guards were scattered before Spartan steel, and our warriors pressed forward without delay. The Acropolis itself, that seat of their arrogance, was the chosen target. Its temples, raised to boast of wealth and false wisdom, now serve as proof of their weakness. Torches were set, fires carried by the wind, and soon the proud heights of Athens blazed like a funeral pyre. The cries of our foes echoed through their city as their sacred hill burned. Our casualties were light. Not one Spartan faltered. The enemy, caught in confusion, dared not meet us in open battle. Instead, they fled, abandoning their shrines to ruin. From a sea, our fleet bore witness to the Acropolis consumed.
Asteria listens with interest but also with a slight expression of disappointment, probably due to the queen's prohibition on her traveling to Athens for her own safety. Her regret at having missed the sight of the enemy Acropolis in flames is palpable.
Luke says, "We returned in order, ships laden with spoils."
Queen says, "A war spoils," she smiles with a happy smile.
Luke says, "No trireme lost, no banner taken." This was not merely a raid, but a message written in fire across the sky of Greece. Sparta strikes where she wills, and none may withstand her. So I report that Athens trembles as air pride is ashes and Sparta stands supreme.
Queen says, "Hail Sparta!
Hail Sparta!
Haru! Haru!
Hail Sparta! Hail Sparta!
Haru! Haru!" Asteria says, "Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever.
Haro.
Alelangel soul says, Aro.
Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever.
Haro.
Priestess says, are you worshipping? Queen sounds off the Sparta battle. Priestess says, are you talking about combat? Queen sounds off the Sparta battle horn.
Luke says Haru. Luke says Haru.
Socrates says, Haru.
Luke says Haru.
Socrates says, Haru.
Queen says, Hail Sparta!
Hail Sparta.
Haru! Haru! Queen sounds off the Sparta battle horn.
Luke says Haru. Haru.
Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro!
Socrates says, Haru. Haru.
Luke says Haru. 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 This is all I have to report for today, my queen.
Queen says, Thank you for today reports, General. They were glorious and made us happy. You are dismissed, please seat. Queen salutes.
Luke says, Chere salutes.
Asteria looks with pride upon the courageous deeds of the men of Sparta. Queen says, she looks trough her scrolls, then peeks at the Councillor. I call now upon representative of our council to deliver command reports.
Alelangel soul approaches to the center with her scrolls ready. Alelangel Sol bows respectfully to her queen and says, I wait for your permission to start the training reports, my queen.
Queen says, permission granted, sweetie.
Alelangel Sol starts to says while opens her scrolls beneath an open sky that seemed to foreshadow the beginning of a greater trial. Two warriors met on the training field. Their steady gazes and the weight of their weapons revealed that this was not a simple encounter, but the start of 6 weeks of discipline, strength, and endurance. The first clash of their swords echoed like a silent oath. They would grow in combat, but also in spirit.
Priestess says, are you discussing something? Queen says, listens with interest.
Alelangel Sol cleared her voice and kept going each day. The training became more intense. Through strikes, falls, and sweat, Councillor and Ambassador learned to recognize each other's skill and determination. The dust of the field rose with every confrontation, and amid the fatigue, a mutual respect blossomed that strengthened their bond. Alelangel smiles remembering all these days of hard training in 2 of the training days. We had also the visit and participation of our Ephraim, that confront against the battle-hardened women, and shown to all empire that she is a daughter of Sparta, demonstrating her courage and her hidden strength within herself.
Asteria looks at the Councillor with a proud gaze that betrays her satisfaction at having been part of that intense and exhausting training session. Queen says, Hail Sparta!
Hail Sparta!
Hurroo! Hurroo! Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro!
Luke says Harut. Huru.
Asteria says, Sparta blessed by the gods to protect us forever. Haro.
Alelangel Soul looks down to scroll and keep reading as the weeks passed. The fight ceased to be merely an exercise of strength and became a shared learning. Rivalry transformed into companionship, into the certainty that beyond victory or defeat, they had forged an unbreakable alliance. He appreciates and thanks the presence and participation of our ambassador Asteria and Epherminia that made the training time during this week's a Spartan tradition that never ends.
Queen says, Hail Sparta.
Hail Sparta.
Huru. Huru.
Alelangel Soul says, Aro. Aro.
Queen says, trainings are very important. The bounds you achieve there result in a great understanding on battlefield. Smiley face. Please continue your reports, Councillor. Asteria says, Well spoken, my queen.
Alelangel Soul closes her scroll and finalizes there were 6 weeks of hard training for the three of us. She opens another scroll and starts to read about the last Sunday under the relentless midday sun. 2 warrior companions faced each other in an intense battle training session. Sweat streamed down their foreheads as their weapons clashed with force, making the air tremble with every strike. Neither yielded ground, driven by mutual respect and a desire to surpass themselves. The training field, covered in dry earth and surrounded by hills, echoed with their shouts and the clang of metal. Witness to a struggle born not of enmity, but of sisterhood forged in combat. Alelangel Soul keep reading despite their exhaustion. Laughter escaped between ragged breaths, a reminder that beyond physical effort, they were bound by deep loyalty. Every fall was followed by an outstretched hand, every mistake turned into guidance. Beneath the blazing sun, they were not only tempering their weapons, but also their bombestronas, the steel they wielded. That day was more than just training. It was a dance of strength, willpower, and companionship that fortified the soul as much as the body. Especial thanks to Ambassador Asteria for her participation and support during the training.
Queen says, Sisterhood forget in combat, she repeats after Councillor, and kind of nostalgic covers her eyes, as she remembers her own time as hoplite in the army. Forged asterisk.
Luke says, looks down at the scroll rolling to his feet for how much she wrote and smiles.
Alelangel Soul closes her scroll and says, I want all Spartans to invite to our training every Sunday at 1 de la tarde. We always are encouraged to train with the sun of midday.
Asteria smiles with delight. The training has undoubtedly strengthened their spirits as much as their skills, uniting the two women in their shared endeavor.
Luke says, I will force every Spartan possible to come to join you, or they will get the night patrol for 1 month.
Asteria giggles. Queen says, covers her mouth to hide a smile.
Luke says, and after the training, they will get night patrol anyway, to test them.
Queen says, smiles at General. Asteria looks around with an amused expression at the general's words.
Alelangel soul opens another scroll and nods. On Sundays we have also our bard gatherings, and nods to her queen. I ask for your permission to inform about them.
Queen says, permission granted, sweetie.
Alelangel soul starts to read in this last month. during 6 Sundays we enjoyed the best poetry of around the world. Every Sunday, our poetry park becomes a refuge of words and shared emotions. Friends and neighbors gather under the daylight to bring to life the verses they keep in their notebooks, in their memories, or in their hearts. The everyday murmur of the city pauses for a moment, and the echo of poetry takes its place, filling the air with metaphors, images, and feelings that connect us all.
Queen says, asterisk debates asterisk. Asteria claps hands. Queen says, asterisk debates asterisk.
Alelangel soul keeps reading in each gathering. About 4 to 5 readers each day offered their voices as a bridge between the poem and the audience. Some recite their own creations, filled with sincerity and personal experiences. Others prefer to revive classic or contemporary poems that have deeply marked them. What is certain is that each reading enriches the meeting with a variety of tones, rhythms, and sensibilities that invite reflection, smiles, or even a respectful silence.
Priestess says, are you discussing something? Queen says, asterisk debates asterisk. Asteria claps hands.
Alelangel soul read down her scroll and ends reading each Sunday. We had 6 to 8 guests that were attentive and grateful, enjoy each verse as if it were a shared gift. Some listen with their eyes closed, letting themselves be carried away by the musicality of the words. Others applaud enthusiastically when they recognize the strength of a well-spoken poem. The Spartan Empire always becomes a space of friendship, art, and community, where poetry is not only heard but lived as a celebration of the human spirit. We absolutely thanks our eternal hosts Jolie and Saber, that brought every week this amazing opportunity to share the best poetry of the world.
Queen says, both of them are irreplaceable. Indeed.
Alelangel soul closes her scroll and start to read the second one, respect to the last Sunday. In the heart of the Spartan Empire, Sunday were adorned with the strength of poetic words. With Queen Aurora, whose presence illuminated every corner like a beacon of wisdom and beauty, the readers prepared to give voice to the deepest verses, bringing with them the essence of distant cultures and timeless thoughts.
Queen says, asterisk debates asterisk.
Alelangel soul keeps reading. 5 readers offered their recitals with dedication and passion, sharing poetry from every corner of the world. Ancient songs of war intertwined with delicate odes to love, while metaphors and symbols traveled through time to awaken emotions in every listener. The respectful silence of the court was only interrupted by sincere applause or the quiet emotion of those who allowed themselves to be conquered by the power of words.
Asteria claps hands.
Alelangel soul keeps reading. 8 guests, nobles and travelers alike, delighted in each verse, as if within them lay the wisdom of nations and the echo of eternity. Among marble columns and blazing torches, poetry became a bridge of union, a spiritual feast that transcended borders. This Sunday, under the grace of Queen Aurora, was more than a literary gathering. It was a celebration of the soul, a reminder that even within Spartan rigor, poetry bloomed in splendor. We appreciate and thanks the hosting of Jolie and Sabre that always bring us this opportunity to share the best poetry of around the world. Alelangel Sol closes her scroll and bows respectfully. That's all I have to inform about this events during those weeks, my queen.
Queen says, smiles at the kind words of Councillor directed at her personally. Go on with it, please. What about events taking place this next days?
Alelangel Sol says inviting all presents all Sundays we will make Opera Bard gathering. I hope all Spartans can participate too. We invite it to enjoy the best poetry of the world.
Queen says not. Asteria applauds with pleasure, and her gaze betrays her satisfaction that Sparta has maintained a certain level of activity even during the Queen's long absence and the summer stillness.
Alelangel Sol bows respectfully. Yo, her queen waiting her order. That's all I have to inform my queen. Eurede. Salutes.
Queen says, "Thank you for your reports, Councillor." Queen salutes.
Alelangel's soul goes back to her seat.
Queen says, "Please return to your seat." Looks at the scroll in her hand and calls out, "I summon Ambassador Asteria to inform Apella about diplomatic affairs and management reports." Asteria rises and gains the center of the hall, with quick steps, knowing full well that there is much to say. Herida salutes. Queen salutes. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Asteria says, "Before I begin my report, let me say that my heart rejoices to see you back in your domain. I feared for your life, but it is a great relief to me to see that the gods have preserved you as beautiful and proud as when you left. These same feelings dwell in the hearts of every other Spartan, and my words merely give them voice," she says, smiling radiantly at her. Queen says, "Thank you, sister." It's good to be home. Asteria hints at a smile and adopts a more formal demeanor, before continuing. My lady and queen, I can proudly announce that during your absence, Sparta has once again demonstrated its virtue. The Ephors have deliberated wisely, the Hieroi have officiated ceremonies to the gods, and the warriors have trained vigorously. No turmoil has disrupted the streets, and all Spartans have been united like links in the same chain. Queen says, very pleased to hear such news. It's as it should be. Asteria says, indeed, my queen. As for the population, I am pleased to announce that Councillor Alelangel, beloved daughter of this sacred land, has returned to the home of her ancestors. May the gods bless her return and may her presence bring prosperity to our beloved Sparta. Priestess says, are you worshipping? Queen says, asterisk asterisk. Asteria says, I would like to add that people did not fail to gather in the sunny streets to listen to the bards' hymns or to pour their sweat into the arena, as we just heard from Councillor's own words. Activities therefore continued during your absence, albeit in reduced numbers. Queen says, nods. Asteria pauses briefly before moving on to the next part of her report. But not everything has remained stable in your absence, O Queen. Great changes are unfolding around us, and their scale is such that they will profoundly shake the balance of power in the world. While I wait to better understand their implications for us, allow me to inform you of what I consider to be the most important news, she says, then pauses abruptly, waiting for permission to continue. Queen says, go on, White, sister. looks at Asteria with concern awaiting news as she speaks. Asteria says, accompanying her words with a slight nod of her head, she continues, I have received news from Queen Cleopatra's kingdom of the sands. I know for certain that General Lord Lucas has abandoned those places, taking with him the legion that was stationed in the capital of the kingdom, she says, without hiding a certain satisfaction clearly expressed in her gaze. Queen says, oh my goodness. Asteria says, if you ask me why he left, I would say that that man's greed must have emptied the kingdom's chests, my lady, and that their queen's patience must have run out as much as her gold reserves, she says with an ironic smile on her lips. Queen says, well, this so-called queen deserved it. Her way of treating officials, even simple warriors, got famous in ancient world. Smirks as she speaks. Everyone gets what they deserve. Asteria nods with purpose. She cannot hide that with immense effort how much she despises those people. Queen says, this Egyptian ruler has bad reputation, sister. I would not fault a lone general for his betrayal. However, such warriors, such rulers. Asteria says, you are right, my queen, but those who devote themselves to a snake should not complain if they are bitten. Queen says, all her warriors were mercenaries. There was no single pure-blood Alexandrian on there. Asteria says, what is certain is that Egypt is now weaker and can only rely on its own militias, the eagles of Alexandria. For this reason, it seems that Queen Cleopatra has abandoned her ambitions of domination and has shut herself away in her own possessions. Her armies do not venture outside the kingdom, and her subjects devote themselves to their dark rituals, preventing access to those who do not belong to their kingdom. Alexandria is on its own, so it seems my queen. Queen says we could discuss this for hours and telling you tales that take turns in ancient world about this woman, sister. But it would just stain your pure soul, sister. I refuse even to call her a queen. Being queen is maintaining some dignity. Asteria says, better truth has never been told. I wouldn't want to relive those days or desecrate this room with those memories, O Queen. Queen says, please move on with the news, ambassador. Asteria ponders for a moment, then says there is much more to say, O Queen, but I do not want to bring you rumors carried by the wind, only reliable information. For this reason, I ask permission to step back to evaluate what has been reported to me and give it the seal of truth. Queen says, permission given. Asteria smiles gratefully. In that case, there is only one last thing left for me to say. You asked me to prepare a declaration of war against our Athenian rivals. I have completed the task and can read it to you whenever you wish. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Queen says, thinks for a moment before responding. Then you have served Sparta well, Asteria. The hour has come when words must strike with the weight of spears. We have been waiting for it. Please read declaration before this Apella. Asteria nods and searches through the folds of her dress until she pulls out a scroll. Asteria begins reading in a solemn tone. Declaration of war. From the Hieros and Queen of Sparta to the people of Athens. In the name of the immortal gods and the justice that prevails among men. To the Athenians who believe themselves masters of the sea and the land, the Spartans declare the following. For countless generations, the sacred island of the tides has belonged to the Spartan people by right of conquest, by the will of the gods, and by inheritance from our fathers. On this blessed land stands the palace of our queen, where the bones of our kings rest and where our mothers have given birth to heroes for centuries. You Athenians, not satisfied with your dominions and filled with pride at the growth of your polis, have dared to desecrate our soil. You have sent your triremes against what is most dear to us, hoisting your banner where no one had dared to venture until now. Know this, sons of Theseus. As iron is tempered in fire, so Sparta is tempered in war. We have already responded to your outrage. The Acropolis of Athens still burns with our torches, and this is only the beginning. We do not seek your gold, we do not crave your harbors. We ask only for what is ours by divine and human right. The tides remains and will remain Spartan as long as there are men willing to die for it. The gods bear witness. Every Spartan will shed his blood before yielding an inch of that blessed land. Let weapons speak now, for words are finished. Ambassador Asteria.
Πρέσβυρα παντεξούσιος το βασιλείου ταυσίγμα Σπάρτης, διπρόσωπος τάφνη βασιλέων.
Queen says, a worthy effort, sister. Yet a queen must weigh every word before it is cast into the ears of gods and men. I see strength here, but also places where Athens might laugh instead of tremble. You name the Ephors and the queen at the opening. Remember, Sparta speaks with one voice in war. It must be clear that it is the queen's decree. Asteria says, then tell me what you would like me to correct, O queen. Queen says, "You call upon the justice that prevails among men. Justice is the boast of Athens. Sparta claims honor and steel replace that lest they think we borrow their tongue." Asteria nods. "Then Sparta will speak just through your voice, O Queen." Queen says, "You speak of the island of the tides and of our palace there. Athens will sneer, for they call it theirs." Sighs. Also, sister, your charge that they desecrated our soil is strong, but you weaken it by saying they hoisted their banner where no one dared. Better to say, you defiled that which only Sparta may claim, and for that your banner shall burn. Asteria says, "They can only speak of justice, but with the tongue of a snake, O Queen. Those they once called allies are now merely their servants. Justice in their mouths is a joke, but I can understand your plea. I will change as you ask me." Queen says, thinks for a bit, then says, We need to discuss it more on next Apella. Prepare new draw ambassador. Asteria says, "I will do it, my queen. And that is all I had to say for this night," she says, folding her dress again. Queen says, "Thank you, dear ambassador, for your hard work. Please return to your seat."
Χαίρετε.
Asteria says, "Herida," salutes. Queen salutes. Priestess says, "Are you discussing something?" Queen says, "I call upon Hieros Socrates to perform Apella closing prayers." Priestess shouts, "I will sing of Zeus, chiefest among the gods and greatest, all-seeing, the Lord of all, the fulfiller who whispers words of wisdom to Themis as she sits leaning towards him. Be gracious, all-seeing son of Kronos, most excellent and great. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May Zeus and the gods bless this city, its king, its princess regent, its royals, and all of its citizens. We offer you a libation of sweet honeyed wine. May the gods bless all who attended these prayers."
Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for the gods. To Demeter. Deo, divine mother of all, goddess of many names, august Demeter, nurturer of youths, and giver of prosperity and wealth. You nourish the ears of corn, O giver of all, and you delight in peace and in toilsome labor. Present at sowing, reaping, and threshing, O spirit of unripe fruit, you dwell in the sacred valley of Eleusis. Charming and lovely, you give sustenance to all mortals, and you were the first to yoke the plowing oxen to send up from below a rich and lovely harvest for mortals. Through you there is growth and blooming, O illustrious companion of Bromios, and, torch-bearing and pure one, you delight in the summer's yield. From beneath the earth you appear, and to all you are gentle, O holy and youth-nurturing lover of children and of fair offspring. You yoke your chariot to bridle dragons, and round your throne you whirl and howl in ecstasy. Only daughter with many children and many powers over mortals, you manifest your myriad faces to the variety of flowers and sacred blossoms. Come, blessed and pure one, and laden with the fruits of summer, bring peace, together with the welcome rule of law, riches too, and prosperity, and health that governs all. Socrates pours libations of honey-sweet wine from his chalice for Demeter. Socrates pours final libations of honey-sweet wine for the gods.
Χαιρετισμούς.
Socrates salutes.
Queen says, "Thank you for Apella closing prayers, Hieros." Queen salutes. I thank you all for today's Apella. See you on tomorrow party, smiley face. I wish you good night. Queen salutes.
Χαιρετισμούς.
Socrates salutes.
Asteria says, "May gods watch over you all." Herida salutes. Queen says, moves behind throne and vanishes in the hidden gates. Apella says, Adine Odgar is at the gate.
Pirate says, "Hello, Asteria."
Asteria says, I must leave too, we meet tomorrow, Hieros.
Socrates says, "Good night, Asteria."
Χαίρετε.
Asteria says, have a good night.
Χαιρετισμούς.
Herida salutes.
Socrates salutes.